these are a couple of travel watercolor sets that I have and I use currently. And on the left, I've got the Rembrandt 12 half pan set. Right side here, I've also got the Schmincke 12 half pan set. And they are pretty much the same size, but there's some important differences that you need to be aware of before you get either one. So I'm going to just talk about some of those differences. And the first thing we'll start off with is the colors. So both of these come actually with a whole different color set. So this Schmincke set is, they call it the Wanderlust set. So it's like, yeah, you can paint pretty much anything with it. Sunsets, coastal scenes, nature scenes, even some street scenes. Whereas this one here on the left, the Rembrandt call it their urban landscape or their street scene set. Now, you still get pretty much every color that you need to paint most things. So if you want to paint coastal scenes or if you want to paint nature, there's still a green in there. You can mix the yellow as well to make it a little bit lighter, okay? But the interesting thing about Schmincke is that they really put in effort to add in two different primary colors. So you've got 2 yellows, 2 reds, and you've even got 3 blues in here, which is super important for me so that I can mix up different variants of green, different variants of orange and stuff like that. So, you know, you still get a couple of earthen colors, which you can't mix. I think those are really important. Plus 2 tinting colors here. So I think the Schmincke set, especially this Wanderlust set, it's more versatile. And the tinting colors as well, with neutral tint especially, you know, you can add that to any other color, darken it, or you can use Mars black, and that will add an element of granulation to all the other colors as well, but still tint it and make that color darker. So yeah, I would say that overall, if you look at Schmincke's color, if you look at the colors they have available, they have a much wider range of colors. So if that's something that's important for you, which for me it is, you know, I think that's the one to get. And also they use a special pouring process, and I watched this in a video where they make sure that no air bubbles form. They pour the pan right to the top, let it dry, continue adding more and more paint until it's filled right to the top. So I found that the Schmincke pans just to be more concentrated and they last you longer compared to other brands. Now, I'm not so sure about Rembrandt. I've only been using this one recently, but as you can see, you know, I've painted a couple of scenes and it's made a significant, you know, there's little holes in some of these pans already. So yeah, but it is, you know, it's going well still. I do have some other brands like Magello, and I find that they re-wet very nicely, but you just go through those pans like no tomorrow. So for me, I don't want to be refilling them all so often, and also want to get good value for what I buy. So yeah, I can say that Schmincke does a really good job here. Rembrandt, I'll have to see. So in terms of the actual design of the palette, you'll see there are some differences. Now, the first is the color, and you might think it's not really a big deal what color the palette is, okay? But I find that for someone like myself, and I'm actually partially colorblind, having a palette that is really like a bright white color, like the Schmincke pan here is, really makes it so much easier to distinguish what color I'm using, okay? The Rembrandt pan is a kind of slightly off-white color there, and yeah, it really depends on what you need, but yeah, I find it just much easier to distinguish the color on there. But the Rembrandt color, the palette, is actually more closer to what the color of watercolor paper is. So yeah, but personally I find it just easier to distinguish what color I'm using with the Schmincke pan. The advantage of the Rembrandt is that whatever you've mixed up here would resemble what you end up painting on your paper, but it also depends on your paper, because you can have smooth paper, you can have rough paper, you can have paper with different sizing on it, which also influences how the paint will dry. So yeah, this is not a fail-safe way either. Either way, you know, you're still really going to have to practice and get used to painting on your specific paper to really understand how that color is going to turn out. But yeah, interesting observation. The pans as well, they're organized a little bit differently. They're spread apart a bit more on the Schmincke set, which allows you to actually put in larger brushes. So there's this brush that's come with the Schmincke set, but you can also add like a larger metallic brush, metal handle brush like this. I can't do this on the Rembrandt set. It doesn't even fit in sideways, just a bit too long. I could probably knock it out, give it a bit of a knock, and make it fit, but yeah. The brushes that come with both of these sets are also quite different, so for those of you who are not going to buy any extra brushes, it's important. The Rembrandt set, as you can see here, in my opinion, is pretty flimsy. Okay, it's plastic. Okay, which is not a huge issue with a set like this, but it's just so light, and I find it very, very difficult to paint with something like this, just to even get a firm grasp of it. I also found that while I was using this outside, that I would get this area maybe wet, this center area, while I was dipping it into water, and it makes it slippery, and the head will sometimes just detach and fall into my water supply. So I didn't like that. So I wouldn't rely on this brush if you were getting that set. I would perhaps get a secondary brush and keep that with you, because this one here is just a separate set from a company called Golden Maple, and yeah, as you can see, they also fit nicely in there. But the brush that comes with the Schmincke set, surprisingly, it's really good, and I reckon it has something to do with the fact that they've contracted this out to a company called Da Vinci, and they make fantastic brushes. I think they're pretty sure they're a Spanish company, though it says Germany here. Maybe they're a German company, but they, in either case, it has a really nice weight to it, and the handle itself is, you know, the same diameter as a mechanical pencil, so it's a very usable brush for something that just fits in there, detaches, unscrewable kind of thing. And the actual brush head itself, this is a number 6 brush, so you can paint quite a few things with this brush. You're not going to be cramped over with a tiny little brush where you have to keep reloading. This is going to hold a decent amount of paint. But yeah, the overall weight, the quality, and the size of this brush, I was genuinely impressed with it. So yeah, let's have a look at the actual mixing wells. So they're quite similar, 3 mixing wells on the top, and at the bottom you've got 6 mixing wells for both sets. I don't really use these too often. If you're someone who paints smaller scenes, this will be good, because yeah, you won't have to mix up much color. Otherwise, I find it just, a bit annoying. So if you're painting a face of a figure or something small in there that just requires a little bit of color, these are great. Otherwise, I tend to stick with these 3 mixing wells on top, which surprisingly are enough. Even you could even paint up to maybe A4, A3 if you're stretching it. Okay, of course you're not going to have much space in there to mix up, and sketching sets are more designed for you carrying around something like a little sketchbook. So I don't normally carry anything larger than an A4 sketchbook with me, and I would say that's the ideal, A4, A5, the ideal kind of paper size to be using with these pans, especially with the size of brush that you're using. I've seen people also take a watercolor mop brush and cut it right down the center to shorten that brush so that they can fit it in there as well. It would really be nice if there was if I could fit in 2 brushes in here. And the Rembrandt, you could fit in 2 brushes, one at the top, one at the bottom, but they'd have to be pretty small brushes. I find that yeah, that one actually fits in okay, the smaller one. If I want to go for like a larger brush like that, even though it will fit in diameter wise, see, I'm gonna have to like kind of squeeze it in there to fit. So you can get away with it, but yeah, now you see I'm trying to dig it out. So it's obviously not ideal if you want to carry 2 brushes. That's probably just due to the size of these pans. So yeah, they could make them closer, but at the same time you might end up mixing your colors accidentally. And yeah, in terms of other observations, I think that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to say. Both have these little ring things on the back to hold them. But yeah, if I were to choose between both of these, I mean, based on just the colors alone, I'd probably go the Schmincke. If I had to carry around 2 brushes and needed a bit of extra space, I think the Rembrandt would be good. But the Schmincke allows you to carry around just one larger brush. If you've got a big brush in there, you know, you're going to be able to carry that through the center section like that. So yeah, in my opinion, I think overall the Schmincke set wins.